Hey guys, check out this sweet piece of wood that I found this morning at my local artisan woodworker supply. This is a chunk of rough sawn ash, and the wood grain on this is absolutely stellar. It is a bit rough, a couple of gouges, which is why they gave me such a good deal on this thing, and they only charged me like 3/4 of the price, so this board was like 40 bucks. But I'm pretty sure I can make a 2-piece guitar body out of this, and it will look stellar with this grain. Now, if you've been following my channel for a while, you've seen me working on some prototype instruments. I mean, you've seen this one here, you've seen this one here, and most recently you saw me build this one. Now, all of them has gotten me one step closer to having a final product that I'm really excited about. And so I think I'm gonna nail it this time. So let's go ahead and give it a shot. I'm Dan, this is Guns and Guitars. Let's get started. So I don't currently have a table saw or a joiner, so instead I got this edge guide clamp from Harbor Freight for about $17, I think. So hopefully, just using my circular saw, I can true up this edge and true up the edge on the other one, and then we'll be good to glue them together. Alright, so I learned something new. My blade was not trued up with my blade guide, which is why I had trouble cutting that first time. So let's try this again and see if I get any better results. Much better. Voila! Who needs a freaking table saw? We are one day later. Don't know if I mentioned this, but these, again, cheap Harbor Freight clamps, and they are the worst clamps. But they're cheap and they get the job done. This is going to be a beautiful guitar body. Now, last time I cut out my own shape from a slab body, I planed it down to the thickness that I wanted, then I drew out my shape and cut it out. But I think this time I'm gonna try doing the opposite, because I think it will be a lot less planing with my router sled if I cut out the body shape first. So we'll try that. We'll see what happens. It seems like the hardest task in an original design is just drawing it out to the proper dimensions on your wood. I've been working on this for about 3 hours before I've actually gotten to a spot where I'm happy with it. And it's not like I'm drawing it for the first time. I drew it out on my iPad first, and I was just trying to copy it. But assuming this comes out exactly the way I want it, then I can make a template and then I'll be able to repeat it without having to go through that process. Now, this is the part of the show where I would show you that you can cut out a guitar body with a jigsaw, and I've done that several times. The problem is, I actually burn up my jigsaw. It was only $5 that I got from an estate sale about 15 years ago, so it had a really good run. And while I was mourning the loss of my jigsaw, I wandered out and bought this off of Craigslist. So I'm really excited. I've got a bunch of new tools that I get to try out with this project, and this is gonna be my first go with an awesome bandsaw. All right, try to not judge me too harshly. I'm a total noob with this bandsaw, but I did download the owner's manual, and I'm pretty sure I have it set up properly. We're gonna take a quick break because my phone timer is going off, which means it's time to flip my other guitar. Now you're probably wondering what the heck I mean by flip my guitar. Well, like an idiot, I didn't know how to properly use my moisture meter, and so when I started building a guitar out of this slab of wood, I realized it wasn't quite done drying. So I'm drying it out the Dan Thompson way, by slow cooking it at 100 degrees for several hours on my Blackstone griddle. And it is working. When I started, it was about 80% moisture in there, and we are down to about 20%, so we are almost done. Well, I'm gonna level with you guys. So far, this has not been much faster than using my jigsaw, but I think maybe this blade is dull, and I think I'm using too wide of a blade. So I'm gonna put on a thinner blade that's hopefully sharper, We'll see if we can't do some of these tight curves a little bit easier and faster. All right, so changing out the blade on this thing, much more of an ordeal than my Jigsaw, but hands down, the easiest router sled to build. Just angled steel, wood pieces the width of your router. Done. Can't take credit for it, I stole it from someone else. That's why you haven't seen a video from me on this. So I'll just go ahead and link in the description or up in the iCard over there, the video that I used to make my router sled. Yet another new tool in my shop that I get to play with today. You know, I think I might make a video on how to build your dream guitar workshop for less than 500 bucks, because all these sweet new tools that I got smoking good deals on. So maybe I'll share that with you if you guys are interested. Let me know in the comments. Sand that a little bit. It's a bit tight. Yeah, perfect. Sweet. Center line is still the center line. I have been back and forth on whether I should do a jazz bass layout or a PJ layout. It's time to make a decision, and I'm leaning towards doing a jazz bass again, just because the last bass that I built was a jazz bass and it sold faster than I would have liked, so I didn't get to enjoy it for very long. Now you notice I've got my clear acrylic templates up here, and I'm using these because they have the laser etched guides on them, so I can make sure that I'm centered on my center line. And I'm just going to trace it, and then I'll know where to put my other templates when it's time to route. That way I still benefit from the guides that they put on these templates, but I don't have to worry about accidentally messing them up. I don't know about you guys, but I am loving how this prototype is turning out. So real quick before I go any further, I'm going to go ahead and trace out this design onto some cardstock so that even if I want to make some subtle changes to it down the road, I at least have a good launching point. Let's take this slab body and turn it into something a little more comfortable to play. What do you think? Well, crud. Look at what just happened. I think I didn't tighten my bit tight enough in the chuck. That's horrible. Ugh. Well, that's going to take some fixing. Darn it. Well, I can make that a part of the comfort carve, and that's how I can make that go away. I'm just going to end up making that a lot deeper than I expected, because I was just going to do something like this. But I think now I'll do something like this. And that's why you always start on the back first. All right, here I'm going to do my signature 5-screw neck joint. And what that means is I'm going to do 3 screws at a 90-degree angle and 2 screws at a 45-degree angle to pull that heel down into the body as tight as possible. Now, a lot of people say that having the tightest engagement possible has no effect on tone or sustain or whatever, and that may or may not be true, but in any case, having the tightest fitting neck pocket certainly doesn't hurt. So feel free to steal my idea because I stole it from Billy Sheehan. So there's nothing new under the sun, right? All right, so in the spirit of copying things that we think are cool, I'm going to copy my buddy Lauren here, who built me that Skyway 24 that I showed you in a previous video. And I'm going to go ahead and route out maybe, I don't know, 1/8 of an inch, maybe 3/16 of an inch right here, just so that I can get my fingers up into those tinier frets a little bit easier. And that will lower these 3 90-degree screws. But since we got all this meat here for the 245s, I'm not concerned about it at all. So another thing that I've been paralyzed on is whether or not I should do a pickguard, because my original prototype that I drew out shows a pickguard, and I feel like the pickguard adds to the coolness factor of the design. The problem is, well, it's not really a problem. The good thing is that this 2-piece ash body looks absolutely beautiful, and I actually hate to cover up that beautiful wood grain with such a large pickguard. You know, pickguards are great for masking imperfections in wood, or, you know, wood grain that doesn't have much character in it. Or, of course, if you just spray on like an opaque finish, then who cares if you're covering up the body or not. But this wood grain looks so freaking cool. So I think where I landed is I really wanted to see how it's going to look with a pickguard in the end. So I went ahead and made the pickguard. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to do both. I'm going to go ahead and route out the back for electronics, so we'll do a rear cover plate. So this pickguard is not really going to be covering the electronics. It's kind of just going to be on there for style points. And really, this is just so I can see it both ways, you know. Of course, there's going to be some screw holes for the pickguard. That can't be avoided. But it'll allow me, and ultimately whoever buys this, to choose if they want to show off that beautiful wood grain or not. Because this is ash, it's an open grade wood, it lends itself to some really cool staining and dyeing methods. And so hopefully I'm going to come up with a really cool finish for this. And then I can decide afterwards if I want the pickguard or not. Alright, so I'm paralyzed on what to do again. I originally stained this black so that I could sand it back and put some red on it and give it a cool, like, red contrasting grain color. But now that I've seen it all black, I mean, how freaking cool does that look? So I just fell in love with this. I think I'm going to leave it black. I stained the pickguard black as well, and there's just not enough contrast. So I think I might try to buff this lightly with some steel wool. I guess we'll see how that looks. Buffing with steel wool is also a trick I use to get the grain to pop through the stain a little bit more. So if you stain your guitar or your pickguard and it comes out too dark and it covers up the wood grain, buff it lightly with some steel wool, and the wood grain comes right back. Pretty sweet. Yeah, I think that looks kind of cool. I might even buff it out a little bit more, but so far, I'm liking that. So, like a total moron, I completely forgot to drill holes for my electronics to go into my electronics cavity, so I guess I better do that. I also didn't drill my ground wire for my bridge, or my string through holes for my bridge. And I do want to do a string through, so I guess I better do all that before I do any more finishing. Well guys, this video is getting a bit long, and we still have a lot of work to do with the finish coat and electronics and the neck. So next week we'll talk more about this neck and the electronics and stuff that I'm going to be doing, and hopefully get it finished up and get a good sound demo going. So make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss that video next week. I'm Dan, this is Guns and Guitars, and I'll see you in that next video.